The Council's fatal mistake, the arrogant rulers, the massive crystal chamber of the Galactic Dominion Council gleamed under artificial starlight as 12 alien species sat in judgment of the galaxy. For over 2,000 years, these beings had ruled with absolute authority, deciding the fate of countless worlds and civilizations. Their power was unquestioned, their word was law, and their arrogance knew no bounds. Supreme Chancellor Vixtar of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the center of the chamber, his tall, silver-scaled form radiating authority. His species had led the Council since its formation, and he wore that legacy like a crown. Around him, the other Council members watched with cold interest as the newest species in their domain prepared to make their monthly tribute report. Ambassador Sarah Chun stepped forward, representing humanity with dignity despite the hostile atmosphere. She had served as Earth's diplomatic representative for 3 years, enduring countless humiliations and insults. The Council treated humans like primitive children who had somehow stumbled into space travel. Every meeting was a reminder that humanity was considered the lowest member of their galactic society. "Speak, human," Vextar commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber with barely concealed disgust. "What pathetic offering does your species bring to justify your continued existence in our galaxy?" Sarah's jaw tightened, but she maintained her professional composure. "Honorable Council members, humanity has exceeded all tribute quotas for the 14th consecutive month. Our colonies have provided 2 million tons of rare minerals, advanced agricultural products, and technological innovations that have benefited many Council worlds." The insectoid representative from the Montari hive clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his species. Innovations? What could primitives possibly teach their betters? Other Council members joined in the mockery. The aquatic hydran delegate gurgled with amusement, while the crystalline silicate representative's form glowed with what could only be described as condescension. To them, humanity was nothing more than a convenient source of resources and labor. Vextar raised one of his 4 arms for silence. "Your species continues to disappoint us, human. Your expansion rate is too slow, your tribute offerings lack creativity, and your people show insufficient respect for their superiors. Perhaps it is time for a more aggressive approach to your education." Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. The Council's aggressive approaches were legendary throughout the galaxy. Entire civilizations had been reduced to slavery or extinction when they failed to meet the Council's impossible standards. The impossible demand. "The Council has decided," Vextar announced, his reptilian features twisting into what might have been a smile, "that humanity must demonstrate greater commitment to galactic harmony. You will increase your tribute by 300%, effective immediately. Furthermore, you will surrender control of your 3 largest colonies to direct Council management." The demand was impossible, and everyone in the chamber knew it. Humanity was already stretching its resources to meet current tribute requirements. A 300% increase would bankrupt Earth and leave millions of colonists without basic necessities. The surrender of their major colonies would effectively end human expansion into space forever. Sarah's diplomatic training took over, though her heart was racing. "Honorable Chancellor, perhaps we could discuss a more gradual increase that would allow humanity to maintain basic living standards while still showing proper respect to the Council." The chamber erupted in alien laughter. The sound was harsh and cruel, echoing off the crystal walls like breaking glass. Vextar's expression darkened with anger at what he perceived as defiance. "You dare to negotiate with your superiors?" He snarled, his voice carrying the weight of 2 millennia of absolute power. "Your species has 30 galactic standard days to comply with our demands. Refuse and face the consequences." Sarah bowed as protocol demanded, but inside she was calculating. 30 days wasn't enough time to even begin relocating the populations of 3 major colonies, let alone find alternative sources for triple tribute payments. The Council was essentially demanding the impossible, which could only mean one thing. They wanted humanity to fail. The message home 2 days later. Sarah sat in her small embassy office, staring at the secure communication array that would carry her report back to Earth. The weight of what she had to tell her leaders felt heavier than the artificial gravity that kept her feet on the station's deck. President Marcus Webb appeared. On the holographic display, his weathered face showing the strain of leading humanity through its most challenging period in history. Behind him stood General Elena Rodriguez, the woman responsible for Earth's defense and the safety of all human colonies. "Sarah," President Webb said warmly, though his eyes showed concern. "How did the tribute hearing go?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Mr. President, the Council has issued an ultimatum. They want us to triple our tribute payments and surrender direct control of New Geneva, Kepler Station, and the Titan mining complex. We have 30 days to comply." The silence stretched across the light years between them. General Rodriguez stepped forward, her expression grim. "That's impossible, and they know it. Those colonies house over 2 million people, and tripling our tribute would require us to strip mine Earth itself." President Webb's jaw tightened. "What happens if we—" "Refuse?" Sarah glanced around her office, knowing that Council surveillance was everywhere. She activated a special encryption protocol that Dr. James Mitchell had designed specifically for these situations. They didn't explicitly state consequences, but based on historical precedent with other species, we can expect military action. The Council doesn't make idle threats. The President and General exchanged a look that Sarah had seen before during the darkest days of Earth's history. It was the expression of leaders who understood that sometimes survival required terrible choices. "Sarah," President Webb said quietly, "return to Earth immediately. Use the emergency protocols. It's time to activate some contingency plans we've been hoping we'd never need." The secret revealed 3 days later, Sarah found herself in a bunker, complex beneath the Rocky Mountains that officially didn't exist. The facility was codenamed Project Phoenix, and it represented humanity's greatest secret. While the galaxy saw humans as primitive newcomers to space travel, the truth was far different. President Webb led her through corridors lined with advanced technology that would have impressed even the arrogant Council members. General Rodriguez walked beside them, her expression mixing pride and grim determination. "When we first encountered the Council 30 years ago," the President explained, "some of our leaders were excited about joining a galactic community. Others were more skeptical. General Rodriguez's predecessor, General Harrison, convinced us to prepare for the possibility that our new neighbors might not have our best interests at heart. They entered a vast command center where hundreds of technicians worked at stations, displaying star charts, ship movements, and tactical analyses." Sarah realized she was looking at a military intelligence operation that rivaled anything in human history. General Rodriguez took over the explanation. "We've spent 3 decades studying every Council species, mapping their territories, infiltrating their communications networks, and preparing for this exact scenario. While we've been playing the role of grateful junior partners, we've also been building the most advanced military force in galactic history." Sarah stared at displays showing sleek warships unlike any human vessel she'd ever seen. "How many people know about this?" "Fewer than 1,000, President Webb replied. "Our public face has always been peaceful cooperation, and that was genuine. We hoped we'd never need any of this, but we also remembered our history. Humanity has faced extinction before, and we survived by being prepared for the worst while hoping for the best." Dr. James Mitchell approached their group, his eyes bright with the fervor of a scientist whose theories were about to be tested. "Mr. President, all systems are ready. Our stealth fleet is in position, our infiltration teams have been activated, and the Psychological Warfare Division is prepared to begin operations. Sarah felt overwhelmed. Psychological warfare? Mitchell grinned. We've been studying council psychology for decades. Each species has specific fears, cultural weaknesses, and social pressure points. The Zephyrians, for example, are obsessed with maintaining their image of superiority. The Montari hive depends on constant communication between their members. The Hydrans can't survive outside their precisely controlled aquatic environments. We know exactly how to hurt them where they're most vulnerable. The colony massacre. Sarah's introduction to humanity's secret preparations was interrupted by an urgent alarm. Communication arrays across the command center lit up with emergency transmissions from the outer colonies. The main display showed a live feed from New Geneva colony, and what Sarah saw made her blood freeze. Massive council. Warships hung in the sky above the settlement like mechanical vultures. Energy beams lanced down from their weapons, turning buildings into vapor and people into memories. The peaceful farming community that had housed 800,000 colonists was being systematically destroyed. Governor Patricia Hammond's voice crackled through the speakers from her emergency bunker beneath the colony's administrative center. This is New Geneva Colony calling Earth. We are under attack by Council forces. They gave us no warning, no chance to evacuate. They're killing everyone. President. Webb's face went white. Get me a direct line to Supreme Chancellor Vexstar immediately. The communication took several minutes to establish, time that saw the continued destruction of human lives on the display screens. When Vexstar's image finally appeared, his expression showed no remorse, only cold satisfaction. Ah, President. Webb, the alien leader said with mock formality. I trust you're watching our demonstration of council authority. Your colonists' deaths serve as an educational tool for your species. You monster, Webb said quietly. These were civilians. Families, children. Vexstar's reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. They were examples. Your species needed to understand the consequences of defiance. The attacks on Kepler Station and Titan Mining Complex will commence within the hour. After that, perhaps you'll be more receptive to our reasonable demands. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Sarah watched as tears ran down the faces of hardened military officers who were seeing their fellow humans murdered by creatures they'd tried so hard to appease. General Rodriguez broke the silence first. Mr. President, we have 1,800 colonists evacuating from Kepler Station and 3,000 miners trying to escape Titan Complex. Our fastest ships might be able to save some of them if we act now. President Webb closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them, Sarah saw something that made her take a step back. The man who had spent his entire political career advocating for peaceful solutions was gone. In his place stood someone who understood that sometimes peace could only be preserved through strength. Negative, he said quietly. Any rescue attempt would reveal our military capabilities too early. We need the Council to believe we're still helpless. His voice cracked slightly. Those people will die to save billions of others. Sarah felt sick. Sir, there has to be another way. The president turned to her, and she saw the weight of command crushing his shoulders. Ambassador, for 30 years we've tried every diplomatic solution. We've compromised, appeased, and sacrificed our dignity hoping to find a peaceful path forward. The Council has just shown us what they think of human lives. It's time to show them what we think of theirs. The decision for war over the next 6 hours, Sarah watched in horror as 2 more human colonies died under Council bombardment. The aliens made sure Earth received high-definition footage of every atrocity, every murdered child, every burning home. They wanted humanity to understand their powerlessness, to break their spirit completely. But instead of breaking humanity's spirit, the massacre did something else entirely. It unified them in a way that nothing else could have. As reports came in from across human space, the message was the same everywhere. No more appeasement. No more hoping that kindness would be returned with kindness. The galaxy had taught humanity a harsh lesson about the nature of power. President Webb convened an emergency session with the leaders of every human colony and space station. The secure holographic conference brought together men and women who had dedicated their lives to building a better future among the stars. Now they faced the possibility that their dream might die unless they were willing to defend it. 2.5 million people, President Webb said simply. That's how many human beings died today because we believed in the possibility of peaceful coexistence. The Council has made their position clear. They see us as expendable resources, nothing more. Colony Administrator Maria Santos from the Outer Rim Territories spoke first. What are our options, Mr. President? Do we have any chance of fighting back? General Rodriguez stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to show you is classified at the highest levels. For 3 decades, we've been preparing for exactly this scenario. The display behind her lit up with images of advanced warships, hidden military bases, and technological innovations that seemed almost magical compared to humanity's public. Technology. The colony leaders stared in amazement as Rodriguez explained the scope of Project Phoenix. Hidden shipyards in asteroid belts had been producing warships for 20 years. Advanced weapons based on revolutionary scientific principles had been tested and refined. Most importantly, human intelligence operatives had infiltrated every level of Council society, gathering information and planting the seeds for what was about to come. The question, President Webb said after Rodriguez finished her briefing, is whether we're willing to pay the price for freedom. If we do this, if we reveal what we've built and use it against the Council, there's no going back. We'll be committing our species to a war that will reshape the entire galaxy. The vote was unanimous. Every colonial leader, every space station, commander, every representative of humanity's scattered settlements chose war over subjugation. They had seen what happened to species that submitted to the Council's demands, and they had witnessed the fate of those who were deemed expendable. Sarah found herself appointed as humanity's secret communications coordinator, tasked with maintaining contact with human agents throughout Council space. As she accepted her new role, she understood that she was no longer a diplomat. She was now part of humanity's most ambitious military operation in history. The deception begins the next morning. President Webb appeared on every major galactic news network to deliver humanity's official response to the Council's ultimatum. Sarah watched from the command center as her former boss played the role of a broken leader accepting defeat. People of the galaxy, Webb said, his voice carefully modulated to project resignation and fear, humanity has received the Council's message. The loss of our 3 colonies has shown us the futility of resistance. We will comply with all Council demands and hope for mercy in their judgment of our species. The performance was flawless. Webb appeared every inch the defeated ruler of a primitive species that had learned its place in the galactic hierarchy. Council news broadcasts celebrated the successful discipline of humanity, praising Vextar's firm leadership and the effectiveness of their educational bombardment. But in the depths of Project Phoenix, a different kind of education was beginning. Every human agent, every sleeper cell, every carefully placed observer throughout Council space received the same coded message. Phoenix Rising. Execute Phase 1. Dr. Mitchell coordinated the first wave of operations from his laboratory deep within the mountain complex. Psychological warfare begins in 12 hours, he reported to the assembled command staff. Our agents will simultaneously release compromising information about Council leadership across 200 worlds. By the time they realize what's happening, their own people will be questioning everything they've been told. General Rodriguez monitored the deployment of humanity's secret fleet. Stealth ships are moving into position around key council systems. Admiral Kim reports that all vessels are maintaining perfect sensor invisibility. The enemy won't see us coming until it's too late. Sarah coordinated with intelligence operatives who had spent years building relationships with oppressed species throughout the galaxy. Sir, we're getting positive responses from 14 different species. They're ready to support our operations in exchange for help with their own liberation movements. President Webb nodded slowly. The man who had publicly accepted defeat was privately orchestrating the largest military operation in human history. Remember, everyone, we're not just fighting for humanity's survival. We're fighting to break a system that has kept the entire galaxy under the boot of these 12 species for 2,000 years. What we do in the next few days will determine whether freedom means anything among the stars. As night fell over the Colorado mountains, Sarah stood at an observation window, looking up at stars that no longer seemed distant and peaceful. Somewhere out there, the council members were celebrating what they believed was humanity's final submission. They had no idea that their newest victims were about to become their worst nightmare. The war for galactic freedom was about to begin, and humanity intended to win it through careful planning, superior technology, and the kind of ruthless determination that had carried their species through every previous crisis in their violent history. The Council had wanted to teach humans about power, and they were about to receive a lesson they would never forget. Asterisk. The galaxy burns. The first strike. Admiral David Kim stood on the bridge of the stealth battleship Prometheus, watching as his tactical display showed the positions of humanity's secret fleet throughout Council space. For 27 years, he had prepared for this moment, studying alien military doctrine and designing strategies that would exploit every weakness in their ancient battle formations. All ships report ready status, Admiral, his communications officer announced quietly. The bridge operated under strict noise discipline, every system designed to minimize energy signatures that might betray their position to Council sensors. Kim nodded slowly. Around him, the most advanced warship ever built by human hands hung invisible in space just outside the Zephyrian home system. 49 similar vessels waited at strategic points throughout the galaxy, each commanded by officers who had spent their entire careers preparing for this single operation. Dr. Mitchell confirmed that Phase 1 psychological operations are in progress, Kim ordered. From his position at the intelligence station, Dr. James Mitchell's voice carried quiet satisfaction. Admiral, our agents have successfully infiltrated every major Council communication network. The information dumps began 30 minutes ago across 200 worlds simultaneously. Throughout the galaxy, carefully planted human operatives were releasing decades of accumulated intelligence about Council corruption, war crimes, and secret agreements. The proud Zephyrian Empire discovered that their leadership had been selling their own people into slavery for centuries. The aquatic hydrants learned that their sacred breeding pools had been poisoned by Council members to maintain population control. Most devastating of all, the member species realized that their 2,000-year alliance was built entirely on lies and mutual exploitation. Kim watched his screens as chaos erupted across Council space. Captain Torres, report from ground operations. Captain Lisa Torres coordinated the human special forces teams that had been infiltrating Council facilities for decades. Her voice crackled through encrypted communications from her position on the Council's capital world. Admiral, we have confirmed sabotage of primary communication relays on 7 worlds. The Council leadership is losing contact with their military commanders. The plan was working perfectly, while the Council believed they were dealing with a defeated human species. Their entire civilization was being systematically dismantled from within. Years of careful preparation were paying off as human agents struck at the precise moment when their enemies were most vulnerable. The Council's Panic Supreme Chancellor Vextar stood in his private command chamber, staring at reports that seemed impossible to believe. His aide, a nervous young Zephyrian named Kextal, trembled as he delivered increasingly bad news. Chancellor, we're receiving reports of riots on 47 worlds. The subject species are demanding explanations for the intelligence releases. Some are calling for immediate independence from Council authority. Vextar Eptilian features twisted with rage. How could classified information from our most secure databases appear simultaneously across the galaxy? Our security protocols are impenetrable. What the Chancellor didn't know was that human intelligence operatives had been working inside his government for over 20 years. A young aide standing before him was actually Captain Sarah Martinez of Earth Intelligence. Service having undergone surgical modification to appear Zephyrian. Every classified briefing, every strategic discussion, every private conversation had been recorded and transmitted to human analysts. Sir, Martinez said, maintaining her alien disguise perfectly, there are also reports of unexplained equipment failures at our military installations. Ships are losing power, communication arrays are going offline, and our defense platforms are showing systematic malfunctions. These weren't random failures. Dr. Mitchell's teams had spent years developing computer viruses specifically designed to target Council technology. Every system the aliens relied on was built with security, vulnerabilities that human programmers had carefully cataloged and exploited. Vextar activated his personal communication array to contact the other Council members, but the screen remained blank. Unknown to him, human hackers had taken control of the galaxy's entire communication infrastructure 12 hours earlier. Get me visual contact with the other chancellors immediately, he ordered. Martinez pretended to work at her console, while actually sending status updates to Admiral Kim's fleet. Sir, I'm unable to establish contact with any other Council worlds. The networks appear to be experiencing systematic failures. The truth was that humanity's cyber warfare division had isolated each Council world from the others, preventing them from coordinating their response to the crisis. After 2,000 years of absolute power, the Council members were learning what helplessness felt like. The fleet reveals itself. Admiral Kim received confirmation that all primary objectives had been achieved. Council communications were down, their military forces were blind and confused, and chaos was spreading throughout their territory. It was time for Phase 2. All ships, this is Admiral Kim. He broadcast on secure channels to humanity's hidden fleet. Execute Fleet Revelation Protocol. Show them what Earth has been building. Across the galaxy, 50 advanced human warships simultaneously dropped their stealth systems and appeared on every Council sensor array at once. The vessels were unlike anything in the galactic database, sleek, fast, and bristling with weapons that Council military analysts couldn't identify. Commander Vextar of the Council Defense Fleet stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His flagship, a massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion, was surrounded by 12 human vessels that had appeared from nowhere. His sensors showed no energy signatures, no weapon locks, no aggressive postures. The human ships simply hung in space, like patient predators. How is this possible? Vextar demanded of his tactical officer. Our intelligence reports indicated that humanity possessed only basic space travel technology. These ships are more advanced than anything in our own fleet. His communications officer looked up from her station with fear in her alien features. Sir, I'm receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel. They're requesting permission to come aboard and discuss terms. Terms? Commander Vextar had spent his entire career dealing with subjugated species. No conquered race had ever demanded to discuss terms with their superiors. Put them on screen. Admiral Kim's image appeared on the main display, his uniform crisp, and his expression calm. Behind him, the bridge of Prometheus gleamed with technology that made Council systems look primitive by comparison. "Commander Yekstar," Kim said politely, "I am Admiral David Kim of the Earth Defense Force. I believe we need to have a conversation about the future of galactic governance." The demonstration Yekster tried to maintain his species' traditional air of superiority. "Human, you are in violation of Council space. Surrender immediately or face the consequences of your aggression." Admiral Kim smiled sadly. "Commander, I think you misunderstand the situation. Your government has just murdered 2.5 million human civilians in an unprovoked attack on peaceful colonies. We're here to discuss how you're going to make amends for those war crimes." The Council officer's 4 eyes widened in shock. No subjugated species had ever spoken to Council military with such calm authority. "You dare threaten us? We have ruled this galaxy for 2 millennia. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships." Kim nodded to his weapons officer. "Commander, I understand your confusion. Allow me to clarify our position." The space around Eternal Dominion suddenly filled with energy as the human ships opened. Fire. But instead of the bright energy beams that Council forces expected, these weapons fired streams of accelerated matter at relativistic speeds. The projectiles moved so fast they were almost impossible to detect, and they struck with the force of nuclear bombs. Eternal Dominion shook as its shields collapsed under impacts that its designers had never anticipated. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as systems failed throughout the massive vessel. In 30 seconds, the pride of the Council fleet had been reduced to a crippled hulk. "Impossible," Yekstar whispered, staring at damage reports that showed his ship's armor had been penetrated in dozens of places. "Our shields should be impenetrable to kinetic weapons." Kim's voice remained calm and professional. "Commander, your shielding technology is designed to deflect energy weapons. We don't use energy weapons. Human military doctrine emphasizes practical solutions over elegant ones. We throw rocks, but we throw them very fast and very accurately." Similar demonstrations were taking place throughout Council space as human. Warships revealed themselves to increasingly panicked alien military commanders. Ships that had never known defeat were being systematically dismantled by weapons they couldn't understand or countered out the liberation movement DR. Mitchell coordinated the next phase of humanity's plan from his command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Phase 3 involved something that the Council had never experienced in their long history of galactic domination, a coordinated rebellion by their subject species. "Sarah," he called to Ambassador Chun, who now served as humanity's coordinator for alien resistance movements. "What's the status of our liberation allies?" Sarah studied reports streaming in from across the galaxy. "The Aquari have seized control of their homeworld government and declared independence. The Montari hive is fragmenting as local queens break away from central authority. Most importantly, the Verdani plant people have cut off food supplies to 17 Council worlds. For centuries, the Council had maintained power by keeping their subject species divided and suspicious of each other. They had never imagined that someone might unite these oppressed civilizations against their common oppressors. Captain Torres reported from her position on the Council capital world. "Dr. Mitchell, local security forces are pulling back to government buildings. The population is demanding answers about the intelligence releases, and they're not accepting official denials." The beauty of humanity's psychological warfare campaign was its simplicity. They hadn't needed to convince anyone of anything. They had simply revealed the truth that the Council had been hiding for 2,000 years. Once their own citizens learned about the corruption, lies, and betrayals. The member species turned on their leaders without any outside encouragement. The Council's desperate Gambit Supreme Chancellor Vextar finally managed to establish communication with 3 other Council members through emergency backup systems that the humans hadn't yet compromised. The holographic projections showed alien leaders in various states of panic and rage. "This is impossible," growled Chancellor Mexdar of the Hydran Collective, his aquatic features distorted by the poor connection quality. "How did a primitive species develop such advanced military technology without our knowledge?" Vextar's expression was grim. "Our intelligence services have failed us completely. These humans have been planning this operation for decades while pretending to be grateful junior partners. They've made fools of us all." Chancellor Vothron of the Crystalline Assembly chimed in with harmonic tones that conveyed deep concern. "Our subject species are in open revolt. The humans have somehow convinced dozens of civilizations to coordinate their rebellions simultaneously. We're losing control of everything." The 4th member of their desperate conference was Chancellor Kral Fick of the Insectoid Empire, whose compound eyes showed the rapid movements that indicated extreme agitation among his species. "We need to deploy our reserve fleets immediately, crush the human fleet, execute their leadership, and make examples of any species that supported their rebellion." Vextar considered this option, but his military advisors were reporting increasingly disturbing news. Human ships were appearing throughout Council space faster than seemed possible. Their weapons were devastatingly effective against Council technology. Most troubling of all, they seemed to know exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. "How many ships do the humans have?" Vextar demanded of his military intelligence officer. "Unknown, sir. Our sensors can only detect them when they choose to reveal themselves. They could have dozens or thousands of vessels. We have no way to assess their true military capabilities." The truth-revealed Admiral Kim stood in the communication chamber aboard Prometheus, preparing to deliver humanity's ultimatum to what remained of Council leadership. Behind him, holographic displays showed the scope of human operations across the galaxy. The Council's 2,000-year empire was collapsing in real time. Supreme Chancellor Vextar, Kim began when the communication link was established. "I believe it's time for complete honesty between our species." Vextar's reptilian features showed exhaustion and defeat. "What do you want, human? What are your terms for ending this madness?" Kim gestured to the displays behind him. "Sir, I want you to understand what you're actually dealing with. For 30 years, humanity has been conducting the largest intelligence operation in galactic history. We have agents in every council, government, infiltrators in every military organization, and detailed knowledge of every species' psychological vulnerabilities." The scope of human preparation became clear as Kim outlined decades of careful planning. While publicly playing the role of grateful junior partners, humanity had been systematically studying, infiltrating, and preparing to overthrow the entire galactic power structure. "You see, Chancellor, we learned something important from studying Council history. Every species that submitted to your authority was eventually destroyed or enslaved. Cooperation with the Council is just a slower form of extinction, so we prepared for the inevitable." Vextar stared at the human admiral with something approaching respect. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the day we first met your representatives," Kim replied. "Humanity has a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We hoped we could find a peaceful way to coexist. You proved that was impossible when you murdered our colonists. The new order, the final phase of humanity's operation, began with Admiral Kim's broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Using the communication networks that human hackers now controlled completely, his message reached billions of sentient beings simultaneously. "People of the galaxy," Kim began, his voice carrying across hundreds of star systems. "For 2,000 years, You have lived under a system that promised order and protection while delivering oppression and exploitation. That system ends today. BROADCAST showed evidence of Council war crimes, proof of their manipulation of subject species, and documentation of their plans to gradually eliminate any civilization that might challenge their authority. Most importantly, it offered an alternative. Humanity proposes a new galactic government based on equality, self-determination, and mutual cooperation. Every species will have an equal voice, regardless of their military power or technological advancement. Never again will any civilization face extinction because they dared to question authority. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species after species declared their support for humanity's proposal. The Aquari pledged their fleets to enforce the new order. The Verdani offered to coordinate resource distribution fairly among all worlds. Even some Council member species began expressing interest in joining a more equitable galactic community. Supreme Chancellor Vexstar watched his empire crumble from his command center, surrounded by the wreckage of 2 millennia of absolute power. His aide, still maintaining her disguise as a loyal Zephyrian, handed him the final intelligence report. "Sir," Captain Martinez said, barely able to suppress a smile, "all remaining Council military forces have either surrendered or joined the Human Alliance. We estimate that 87% of galactic civilization now supports the new government structure." Vextar looked at the young aide who had served him faithfully for years, and suddenly understood the full scope of humanity's deception. "You're human, aren't you?" Martinez allowed her expression to change, showing the satisfaction of a successful intelligence operative. "Captain Sarah Martinez, Earth Intelligence Service. It's been an honor serving under your command, sir. You taught me a great deal about the importance of treating all species with dignity and respect." Justice and Mercy President Webb arrived at the former Council capital world aboard the flagship New Geneva, named in honor of the first colony destroyed by Council forces. The massive human vessel settled into orbit beside the remnants of the Council asterisk.